I want to get your reaction as a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee to President Trump's decision to cancel that June summit in Singapore with North Korea leader Kim Jong Un.
Well, disappointed that it's not going to happen, but not entirely surprised. We had Secretary Pompeo come in front of the House Foreign Affairs Committee yesterday, and I got the sense after that hearing that President Trump and his team were not fully prepared for the June 12th summit.
So you think this is an issue of the administration not being prepared and not as a result of the back and forth between North Korea seemingly not wanting to denuclearize?
Yeah, I think part of it is the fact that they weren't prepared yet, fully prepared yet. I don't think that President Trump got mad because somebody else used harsh language and so he just suddenly canceled the summit. I do think during this intervening period over the last few months that it's good that Secretary Pompeo has developed a rapport. He's visited twice with Kim Jong Un. I think that's something to build upon. Obviously, there was a release of the hostages, which is a very positive thing. So I hope that the administration can build upon that and marshal the support of our allies and finally come to the table with North Korea. But they've got to be better prepared. They've got to know, they've got to clearly define acceptable denuclearization and, for example, whether they're going to leave a civilian nuclear program in place, which Secretary Pompeo could not answer yesterday when I asked him. So there's still a lot of unanswered positions and questions.
Well, what would have to take place in order to have this summit again? Maybe it happens in a month or two, for example. And what specifically, with regards to the language used in the letter and the back and forth that we're seeing coming out of Pyongyang with regards to nuclear war, I mean, put that into context first, and then I guess what specifically has to be done.
Well, the nuclear war part, Kim Jong Un and his father before him, they've always been these big talkers. There have always been these very hostile, exaggerated statements from North Korea. So that's nothing new. It's been going on for decades. President Trump himself, in a different way, is also somebody who talks big. And so you had both sides that were going at each other with rhetoric, including on Twitter for a long time. So I just don't accept the idea that somehow because they were continuing that things fell apart. But there is an opportunity, I think now, as the news moves on a bit, whether it's to Russia or some other story, for lower-level diplomats to get together and go in there and try to rework the conditions for coming to a bigger summit later on.
Now, let me ask you, switching gears, about this bipartisan meeting, the Gang of Eight meeting at the Department of Justice scheduled for today with regards to what the president is calling Spygate, about having an undercover informants, paid informants from the FBI on the Trump campaign. What do you make of those latest developments? I know that you were really pressing to have attorneys at those meetings.
Yeah, I think that, that both sides, I'm glad finally both sides were included in this meeting, this briefing from the DOJ. But I also saw that the White House had an attorney there. And I believe that part of the reason that President Trump and Devin Nunes have pushed for these briefings, where they're basically exerting a lot of maximum pressure on Rosenstein and the DOJ to give them information, is because the president is trying to take that information and handicap what kind of goods or what kind of legal case Bob Mueller has against him. And this is a way for him to get that information. And the presence of a White House attorney at that meeting, to me, is a signal that that's partly what is going on.
I want to switch gears about the trade talk, because this so clearly impacts your district and specifically. As we talk about things like increasing steel and aluminum tariff imports, or the president using Section 232 with regards to trade, for example, what are you hearing from your constituents in particular about the back and forth? Granted, you're in the minority party, but what are you hearing from them about the president's potential for a trade war with whether it's NAFTA or whether it's China?
Well, most of all, that they're very uncomfortable with the uncertainty. There's been a lot of uncertainty. And, Texas is the #1 trading state in the nation. So business owners are very worried, and employees are very worried about whether the cost of autos are going to go up, for example, whether the cost of our agriculture products are going to go up because of a possible trade war with China or tariffs that may be coming. So this is something that's given a lot of Texans great anxiety. They also watch this in the context of NAFTA, which is still on the bubble. Many of us have been pushing for a successful renegotiation of NAFTA. And I actually believe that whether NAFTA is successfully renegotiated or not will be a bellwether as to whether the United States during the Trump administration is actually able to do any bilateral or even multilateral trade agreements.
With regards specifically to Section 232, I've spoken with several Republicans today who would actually agree with you and say that the president should not be using 232 with regards to autos. Is there a congressional mechanism to stop the president from using it, and would those Republicans have Democratic support to do that?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, you could imagine that we're just getting into those conversations, and so we're going to have to huddle together and figure that out.